With an almost unprecedented WrestleMania main event now under their belt, the Usos are increasingly cementing themselves as the most decorated team in WWE history. However, they are no overnight success, especially at the grandest stage of them all. I'm Joe Hulbert of WrestlePurists, and this is the story of how after many years of pre-shows and less, the Usos became WrestleMania main eventers. For more pro wrestling videos and podcasts, please subscribe to WrestlePurists and give this video a thumbs up. After debuting to mixed reviews in 2010, the Usos first graced the WrestleMania stage at WrestleMania 28. Though they initially arrived alongside Tamina as a villainous trio, they'd turned babyface just over a year later, eventually finding the entrance that had defined that portion of their career. At the time, Jimmy and Jey would appear frequently on NXT, but still made it to the pre-show triple threat for WWE's tag team titles. That had quickly become a familiar spot for the Usos, but they came up short in 2012, with neither them or the team of Justin Gabriel and Tyson Kidd being able to dethrone Primo and Epico. The Usos will be absent from the following year's WrestleMania event, but 2013 proved to be a breakout year for them regardless. In June, they found the looks to accompany their entrance, sporting the face paint befitting their throwback babyface energy. It may not have been the most natural presentation of the twins, but it was an act that quickly got them moving in the right direction anyway. In July, they had their first standout match, rocking it with the Shield tandem of Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins at Money in the Bank. They continued to challenge for the gold also, eventually claiming the belts by defeating the New Age Outlaws in March 2014. Yes, it was as strange to say that as I'd imagine it was to hear it, but that was March 2014. Either way, as champions, they rolled into another WrestleMania pre-show, or by this point, kickoff, retaining their titles in a really fun elimination four-way opposite Rybaxel, Los Matadores, and the Real Americans. In just their second attempt, the Usos had got a WrestleMania win under their belt, but was still without an appearance on the main show itself. That didn't change in 2015, as they wrestled another fatal four-way tag for the kickoff show. Previous summer, the Usos had produced modern classics opposite the Wyatt family's Harper and Rowan, but WrestleMania remained a night for just about everything but tag team wrestling. To make matters worse, Jey had to exit the match before its conclusion, entering with an injury that quickly worsened. That night, Cesaro and Kidd entered and left as champions, defeating the New Day and Los Matadores as well as Jimmy and Jey. By the time Jey returned 6 months later, the tag division had changed. Well, more specifically, the New Day had changed, finding a presentation that quickly made them the tag rank's centerpiece. Even with some enjoyable matches, including that especially spectacular triple threat ladder match at TLC, they struggled to regain their prior status at the top of the division. That was reflected at WrestleMania 32, as the Usos once again found themselves on the pre-show, this time defeating the Dudley Boys. Trust me, that sounds much more significant than it actually was, with the match going just 5 minutes between two acts that frankly were headed in the wrong direction. 2016 was a career low for the Usos, entering into increasingly tepid reactions as they stood alongside Roman Reigns during his feud with the club. By the time that summer's draft came around, they felt as though their run may have reached its natural conclusion. After all, they'd already had the usual WWE tag team stint. This wasn't a promotion where teams often lived forever. By this point, it had been over 6 years, and clearly, something had to change, as the twins' high-energy, colourful presentation had steadily lost its effectiveness. Fortunately, they had an answer, finding an edge after turning heel on American Alpha. Almost overnight, the Usos transformed their entire act, now pairing their in-ring fireworks with a more gritty, almost Briscoe Brothers-esque trash talk. After an undeniably successful run at the top of WWE's tag team division, they'd finally found the formula that would truly separate them from the pack. This was a team to stay, a presentation that truly unlocked Jimmy and Jey. That didn't make any difference to their WrestleMania role, however. Quite the opposite, in fact. On the road to WrestleMania 33, the Usos had shared an exciting television program with Chad Gable and Jason Jordan, the aforementioned American Alpha. In March, the Usos had even defeated them for the SmackDown Tag Team titles, but there would be no WrestleMania rematch, as both teams instead entered the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. If that wasn't enough, you guessed it, that was on the pre-show too. Even still, 2017 proved to be a career year for the Usos, or at least until their recent Bloodline run anyway. That year, Jimmy and Jey produced probably the finest tag team rivalry in WWE history, sharing multiple epics with the New Day. While even these two teams weren't immune from that familiar pre-show positioning, they simply couldn't be ignored, ultimately earning a Hell in a Cell match for their initial blow-off bout. In a feud filled with quality, that particular meeting stands out as the match, an encapsulation of their entire dynamic. It features every piece of their conflict, from entertaining theatrics to outright spite and violence. events. That's the thing, this wasn't just a montage of matches either, with multiple memorable moments occurring outside the ring also. Now, the Usos had the act to truly go back and forth with E, Kingston and Woods, producing some of the year's most entertaining segments alongside those classic encounters. In fact, they were so good that year that in 2018 they even made the WrestleMania main card, finally making the cut after 8 years on the main roster. It wasn't an exactly memorable WrestleMania moment, however, as both they and the New Day were emphatically brutalized by the Bludgeon Brothers. This was about Harper and Rowan, which while well overdue, wasn't exactly the most flattering presentation of WWE's two lead tag teams. It was a quiet year afterwards also, as without the belts around their waist, the Usos slowly faded into the SmackDown background. That was unfortunate after their efforts in reviving themselves, but the Usos rebounded in 2019, defeating Shane McMahon and The Miz to regain the Blue Brands belts. That too was incredibly weird to say out loud, as such is 2019 WWE. Better yet, 2019 WWE was so weird that the Usos not only worked the WrestleMania main show, but they even won, sharing a thriller with Aleister Black and Ricochet, The Bar, and even Rusev and Shinsuke Nakamura. While clearly thrown together as always, this was an undeniable hit, with the Usos' previous lack of Mania moments being an on-screen hook. 2 days later though, their reign was over, dropping the belts to the Hardys in a clash of generations before heading over to Raw. That summer, the Usos feuded with the Revival, battling through a criminally underserved program that now lives in infamy. By the following January, they were back on SmackDown, again standing alongside Roman Reigns as he toppled Baron Corbin and the Dirty Dogs. 2020's WrestleMania was weird for everyone, and the Usos were no different, as just Jimmy represented them in a triple threat ladder match for the tag team belts. Indeed, a tag title match with no teams, but it was hard to dwell on such things as you watched a WrestleMania from the empty Performance Center. At that point, the tag title's prestige was the least of anyone's worries, but Jimmy sustaining an injury along the way felt like a major blow to the team's future. In hindsight, it was the ultimate blessing in disguise, unknowingly positioning Jey for a single stint that's impact is still being felt today. The entire Bloodline saga begins with Jey's matches opposite Reigns, Jimmy appearing as a character throughout. Jey really won the audience's heart with that program, thriving in ring and out. Their two-match series even led him back inside Hell in a Cell, fighting valiantly through a beating that truly shaped Reigns' emerging heel persona. Ultimately, Jey fell in line, winning the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal but on SmackDown rather than WrestleMania itself. Jimmy returned a month later, and they quickly claimed tag team gold, beginning the historic reign that only recently concluded. That reign took them to the WrestleMania main card, opening night one with their first traditional tag match on that stage yet. In every which way, it wasn't quite the scenario that anyone would have hoped for, defending the belts against Rick Boogs and Shinsuke Nakamura, with the former sustaining an injury that got an eventually triumphant evening off to an incredibly shaky start. It was hard to imagine that a year later, they'd be closing that same show. Either way, the Usos remained champions and leveled up in 2022, also claiming the Raw belts in an all-champion clash against RK Bro. That's where this reign really started rolling, with an uptick in match quality accompanying the Usos' compelling interplay with Sami Zayn. It was quickly becoming clear that Jimmy and Jey were no mere lackeys, but instead, main characters in their own right, with Jey playing a pivotal role in particular. That ultimately led them to the industry promised land of WrestleMania main event, closing night one with Zayn and his wrestling soulmate, Kevin Owens. Though it was dismissed as a consolation prize for Zayn, that match very much mattered, carrying immense weight as the conclusion of his own story. Finally armed with the opportunity to be truly great on the WrestleMania stage, the Usos delivered, playing their part to perfection. Few matches in 2023 will compare to that one in terms of the emotion and investment on display. It was truly palpable. That was the culmination of a quite remarkable team effort, as a collection of supporting acts combined in a fashion that made them the undeniable leads. It was simply electric, the match that had eluded the Usos in that setting, and frankly, the one that they'll probably be remembered the most for. Even without the belts though, their story goes on, with Jimmy since emerging as a key player in the Bloodline's apparent collapse. Refusing to fall in line any longer, Jey made his decision in dramatic fashion, setting the stage for Bloodline's civil war. A decade removed from their first breakout match, the Usos triumphantly closed Money in the Bank, with Jey becoming the first man to pin Reigns since 2019. Right now, the Usos feel at the height of their popularity, a true main event act in ways that so few WWE tandems have been. In the promotion's history, it's hard to look past Jimmy and Jey as the number one team. They've been a constant, riding the wave of this division's highs and lows, but now, after 13 long years, reaping the benefits. Though their legacy is about much more than just the WrestleMania memories above, their journey is quite perfectly captured by their ascent of this particular event. From pre-show regulars to worthy headliners, that is how the Usos became WrestleMania main eventers.